So, yesterday we talked about the different types of service publications we got going on in here. We ultimately landed on the fact that we have ShopKey slash ProDemand.com that we can use in here, which is made by a company called Mitchell. So we actually have Mitchell on Demand too. So all three of those companies are the same company. They were all bought by the Snap-on company, like for Snap-on tools. So they're owned by the same company. We can access it through your phone, you can access it through a computer, you can access it through our scan tools when you use a scan tool, and I can show you that later in life. But what it ultimately comes down to is we have a good system here for looking things up. But what also is nice about that is too, we can use it for the labor time standards, and we can actually use it for estimates, which is possibly what we're going to talk about today, possibly tomorrow. But for today, we're going to talk about the different types of pay. So how you would actually make your money. So if you go to work at McDonald's, any of those little fast food jobs, you go to work for pretty much anything under the sun. Most people get paid by the hour. So they'll say, I'll give you say sheets. I'm going to give you $15 per hour. You come in the morning or whenever you start your shift, you clock in, put your 8 hours or whatever hours you put in, you clock out, you get paid for the hours you work, right? That's how most people work. There's other ways people get paid as well. Like for me as a school teacher, I get paid a salary. I make X amount of dollars per year, and I'm contracted to work X amount of hours per year, all right? So it doesn't matter if I work more than that amount of hours, I'm still only going to make that much money per year. So for example, tonight, I'm doing a parent-teacher conference night. I live an hour away. The parent-teacher conference starts at 4 o'clock. School day's over at 2:10. I have from 2:10 to 4 o'clock that I'm not getting paid for sitting here. But that's okay, that's part of my job. I get paid from the 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, but I don't get paid for that little downtime in between. I always make, for this year, I'm making X amount of dollars. On my contract, it's going to say next year I make a slight raise. The next year I'll get a slight raise. But it's already built into my contract. Okay, so it's different than your hourly scale where you get paid for every hour you work. Then you have, in the world of automotive, something called a menu price. So as a technician, you might work for a place that pays you off of a menu. For example, you go to work, say I think Sears, back when they were open, used to have a menu. You put a set of shocks on the front or back of a car, you can make $20. That's all you make, no matter how hard it is to do, what car it was or anything. It's $20 for a set of shocks. Didn't really matter if it took you all day, if it took you 5 minutes, you made $20, okay? It's a little different than flat rate. Oil changes, you made $10 for each oil change you did. It could be a diesel that takes 16 quarts of oil, it takes a lot longer to drain, or it can be just a little Toyota of some sort that takes 4 quarts of oil. You got paid that $10. Not really a great way to get paid if you're a good technician, but that was out there and people did it. Nobody that has any experience would ever agree to doing that, so they didn't. But we're going to land on something called flat rate pay. All right, and I found behind me, this is Universal Technical Institute's webpage, and it kind of explains to you a little bit about the difference between flat rate and hourly pay and the advantages and disadvantages of both. I'm going to send you all a link to this later, but I'm not going to sit here and read the page to you. Okay. With flat rate pay, you as a technician have a chance to make a boatload of money, or you can lose a boatload of money depending on how your day is going. So we talked about that service labor time standards, the book there that basically tells you how much each job pays. So for example, you look up a car, say it's a 96 Mustang, it needs an alternator, the alternator pays 1 hour's worth of labor to do. If you work on it for a half an hour and the job's done, and you make, say, $20 an hour, you effectively, since you did it in a half an hour, you effectively doubled your money and made $40 an hour for that 1 half hour you worked. Then you could take the other half hour, work on something else, make even more money. Or, let's just say I was having a bad day, I'm working on that car, I'm putting an alternator on it, it pays for an hour, but say a bolt breaks or something catches fire and I have to do some wiring or something on it. In that case, you might take longer than an hour. You might take like 2 hours to do the job. You're still only getting paid for that 1 hour's worth of labor to do that job. So then you cut your labor in half. So instead of making $20 an hour for that hour, you've actually only made $10 an hour for that hour. Okay? So you can see how, as a new technician, as yourselves are, you probably don't want to start out your career as a flat rate technician. You probably want to start out hourly. Because as you guys work, you're going to learn stuff. I can sit here and talk till I'm blue in the face for the next 4 years, and you're still not going to learn half as much as you're going to learn when you go out there in the actual real world and start working on cars. Hopefully, like by the time you're seniors, you can be out there like these guys are and wrenching away at things and know some basic stuff, but you're always going to find new things. I am like 52 years old and I'm still learning stuff. Honest to God, this industry has been like baffling as fast as it's evolved over the years. It used to be, say, back in the 1950s, you needed like 3 wrenches to work on a car. Now you need a whole wall full of tools just to work on one model line. So, it's a lot. So, the different ways you can get paid. If you're hourly, you can walk in, make your mistakes, still leave at the end of the day, make money. If you're a flat rate technician, so maybe somebody like myself who has the experience, I kill flat rate. I just completely demolish it. So I'll work like an 8-hour day, and I'll get paid between 10 hours to 16 hours for that day, because I actually can do all those flat rate jobs faster than the time says in a book. So needless to say, back when I was working on cars, I had like a 6-figure salary. I made $100,000 a year. But I was a senior master Ford technician. You guys are not going to start your lives as a senior master anything, because you got to learn. When I first started out, I ate a lot of dirt. I made a decent living, but I had days when I made like 2 hours for an 8-hour day because I had like some real eerie problems that I couldn't fix. But you're going to find out with time, with practice, as long as you don't get in a hurry and you just kind of relax while you're working on things, you'll actually do things in a timely manner and you'll actually make some money. Okay? But, advantages and disadvantages. Mainly it's about like this experience. The more experience you have, the more you'd actually want to work for flat rate. The less experience you have, you probably don't want to do flat rate. You probably want to go hourly. There's even some places that are so desperate for technicians, they'll give you a guarantee. So you work the flat rate, but as to say times are tough and things are slow, they guarantee you an 8-hour paycheck per day, regardless of what you turn for the wrench. They're hoping that you turn more than 8 hours for that day. They're hoping that you're going to like actually charge customers for more than 8 hours worth of labor. So they're banking on you like maybe charging out $12 worth of labor to a customer. But they're saying, hey, if you have a bad day, we're going to make sure you get at least the 8 hours that you were here that day. That is the ideal, perfect circumstance if you can get yourself into that kind of situation. Very few times have I ever been offered anything like that, but most of the time it's offered to the top guy in the shop that knows everything. Same guy will stop working on his car that he's supposed to work on and jump in and help you with yours because you're having issues. So they want to make sure that since you're helping somebody else out, they help you out too for helping everybody else out. So that's pretty much sums it up as far as the difference between the pay scales. Are there any questions? No? Perfect. All right. All right, so we talked about the different types of ways you'd get paid. So now we're actually going to talk about a little bit about billing. The different things we need to know as far as writing an estimate for a customer. Does anybody here know what a damage waiver is? Do you ever go somewhere and they have you sign a piece of paper? Like say, for example, you go and you want to watch demo derbies and you want to go into the pits. They make you sign a piece of paper. Okay? What they're trying to do is, there's some really fine print on the bottom of that piece of paper. It basically says if something happens to you while you're there, they are not responsible for you. Okay? So if any damages happen, they're not responsible. Well, in our world, we have to make sure that we have people's cars. Cars are very costly. People put a lot of expensive things into them. They sometimes have belongings in them. Many times they're sitting in a parking lot. It doesn't matter where you go, your car might get damaged in a parking lot, whether it's the person who's bringing it into your shop, or if you park at Walmart and some D-bag lets a cart run into it, okay? We have to protect ourselves as technicians. We don't want to have to pay for people's cars, even if we didn't damage them. So we actually have repair orders. Ours is pink. By design, I made it so I can see it. And there's a lot of things that go on this repair order. The reason I start this discussion with the damage waiver is because, in my opinion, it is the most important part of this entire document. You can't see it from where you're at, and I can probably barely even read it from where I'm standing, but right there in really teeny tiny print, right there in the bottom, there's a damage waiver, and right below it's a place where you get the customer or the person that owns the car to sign it. My words of advice to you guys is never, ever, 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 ever work on a car without having somebody sign a damage waiver on it, because there's always that one person that says, ever since you changed my oil, my engine taps. That kind of thing. So they might have like a little trick up their sleeve where they got to be kind of quiet before they brought it to you. They figured, hey, if I get this technician to change my oil, I'll say they broke my engine, I'll make them put an engine in for free, and they'll sue. Okay, so that keeps the lawyers away. So the most important part of this document, make sure you get the customer to sign it. All right. Anyway, the different things that belong in here can go in your database. And if it's a customer that comes in all the time, it's something that you can already have preloaded. So all you have to do is, like, when you see Johnny coming in here, you know his name's John Smith. You go into your database, you type in John Smith, and you're like, hey, we working on your F-150 today? Yeah, we are. Boom. You don't have to worry about taking the time to fill all that data out. But the data that's on here is their name, their address, license number for the car, the make, model, and year of the car, and the second most important thing on the entire document is the vehicle identification number, something else we call the VIN number, okay? We're going to be working with the VIN number just a little bit here when I actually set you free in the shop, once I eventually make you that worksheet. But there's some information that the VIN numbers will tell you. And I'm going to pull up something here on my box light. Okay, so when we talk about the VIN numbers, this is probably the second most important piece of information that you're going to put on your repair order. The most important reason why is because that VIN number is very specific to every car. They all are different. You only have one VIN number for every car made. There is no two VIN numbers that are alike. So that when that customer signs their life away in the bottom with that disclaimer, as long as that VIN number is on there with the disclaimer, with their signature, that's a legal document that basically says that, hey, if we break it, too bad, you still own it, okay? We're not responsible. But the VIN number also tells us a whole bunch of other information about the vehicle. The most important thing about that, what you see in front of you, is the model year. So you're looking at a car, you might walk outside, but you see a badge on it that says Ford. You might walk around the other side, you see the word Taurus. But then you're like, okay, what year is this thing? You can open the door and you can look inside. There might be a sticker in there, and it might say, build date, 9 of 07. Well, does that mean it was built in 2007 for a 2007 model year? Or was that built in 2007 for a 2008 model year? Well, the way you can tell for sure is if you count from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, 10 digits, that 10th digit tells you what model year it is. So here, that one's a B. Oh wait, that's not a number. How's that supposed to be a year, right? Well, back in 1980, when they first decided to standardize VIN numbers on cars, 1980 was A, 1981 was B, 1982, so on and so on and so forth. And they went through the numerical index. And then what they ultimately ended up doing was they stopped at a certain number, or certain letter rather, and went with numbers. Okay, now I believe it's all numbers, but the best way you can tell using that is they have charts they produce that you can look at, that you can like really quick look at that 10th digit, and you can look at the chart and you can tell what it is as far as the model year goes. I have provided that for you. It's a real easy Google search though. If you look over on my window, over by my desk, on that far side there, there's one of those charts. And if you look over on the window next to my office, I also have another one of those charts. I have an updated version of that, is up to 2025. I planned on sharing it with you at some point, so look for it to show up on Google. But anytime you're in here working, you can do that. Count your 10th digits, go over and look at the chart. You can tell for sure what year it is. Because the reason why it's important is when you're ordering parts or whatever, sometimes they change a production in the middle of like between 2 years. You don't know if it's 2000 or 2001. They might make a different part for the 2001 that won't fit on a 2000 and vice versa. So when you order like oil filters, alternators, whatever, you want to make sure you have exactly the right year. The second most important thing on that thing is also the engine. So there's different series in here that tells you like engine size and all that good stuff. That one in this case is an assembly plant that was made at. Up here, the first number is always the country it was made in. USA is number 1. So if your VIN number starts with the number 1, we are number 1. So F is the manufacturer, Ford, F, right? G for GM, that's a Chevy product of some sort. Going back to the country, 3 is Mexico, 2 is Canada, I think 5 is Japan. I don't have them memorized, but you get the point. The VIN number is actually very important. Also, if you look at this side of the VIN number from here down, and you end up with a whole series of zeros and a 1 at the end, you're looking at the first car of that type that rolled off the assembly line. 0000001. So those cars are very collectible. Yeah.
Have you ever had a car that was 0001?
I have not, but I have seen them. They have cars like that. Like, actually, there's a couple cars in the Smithsonian in Washington D.C. If you ever get a chance to walk through there, there's a couple really interesting vehicles there. One is my favorite. It's called a Tucker. Did you ever hear of a Tucker? So there's actually a movie out about this. This guy decided back in, I think it was the 1950s, he was going to design this car that was going to be like the best car ever. It has all these features. It even has a headlight right in the center of the car that when you turn the steering wheel, the headlight turns and it actually like shines where you're going. It was really cool. But the problem was he was just a small timer, just getting into business, and all the other major car companies were like real competitive. And it's all hearsay that hasn't never been proven, but somewhere along the line, basically they burned his business down and put him out of business. They did all kinds of stuff, sued him, all kinds of crazy stuff, but the Tucker never took off. But one of the cars that actually was produced by, I forget his first name is, but Mr. Tucker, is actually in the Smithsonian. It's really cool. Same thing with, you ever hear of Bonnie and Clyde, famous gangsters? Their car that they got shot in is in the Smithsonian. Full bullet holes, the whole 9 yards. So if you ever have a chance to go to DC, you should definitely check that out. Smithsonian's free to walk through. All of our museums that are like federally run are free to the public to go through. So it's really cool. But anyway, anything that's the first off the line is worth like more money than it was when they bought it, including your money. If you ever find yourself having a dollar bill in your hand that has a bunch of zeros and then just like single digits at the end, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Even if it's like 0, 0, 0, 4 zeros, and then like any series of numbers after that, it's more than $1. It's worth more than $1. If you get ones that are like really low, like all zeros and like 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 9, you can probably take that $1 bill and turn it into $50 or $100 just selling it on eBay. So just so you know, if you see any serial numbers like, hey, this is really cool. They got things like binary numbers where you can go like, it says like 1 2 1 2 2 2 1 1 2 2 2. You can sell those for like a lot more than they're worth too. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. So VIN numbers. We're gonna actually I'm gonna come up with something And it's gonna be an activity where you go out to my shop cars and you're gonna go out and pull the VIN numbers. You're gonna tell me like what engine's in them, yada yada yada. Okay. There's also more electronic ways where you can decode these too. So I may actually throw something like that at you too. But you definitely want to get familiar with VIN numbers, where they're located on the cars and stuff, which we'll talk about. So back to our repair orders. On the repair order, you're also going to write on here what you're doing to the vehicle. For example, it's coming in for an oil change. We can, like in our business, we know they're LOF, lube oil filter. You can actually write the initials LOF on here, and everybody in our business knows that means oil change. Okay, it used to be back in the day they called it lube oil filter because we had grease fittings on our vehicles. We take a grease gun and we'd actually like grease up suspensions and stuff as part of the oil change process. Most modern cars, unless it's a heavy truck, have no grease fittings, so you don't have anything to really lube up on it other than changing your oil. So like you'll change the oil, you'll check your fluid levels, make sure they're good. You'll check the fluid conditions, make sure they're not burnt. If they're burnt or they're like nasty, you can actually like sell your customer, like called upsell your customer some more services like changing the coolant or whatever. But for the most part, you're changing the oil and changing the filter and making sure it's good. Topping off your like windshield washer fluid, that's it. Sometimes it's not that simple though. Sometimes you'll get a car and it's going to come in and it's going to say on it noise in the front end. Okay. Well, I might take the car out for a ride and I might hear a noise, but I might hear something the customer hears. Customer doesn't hear the same thing. I might bring it in and say, oh yeah, I heard a noise, here's what I need to fix it. You might sell the work to the customer and they're going to like take the car home that same day and say, wait a second, he didn't fix my noise. No, because I fixed the noise that I heard, but it might not be the same one that Bella heard back there. She might be hearing different things. So my suggestion would be is get as much information as you can when you see something like that. You can't just put car has noise. You're going to say, okay, well, like how fast are you going? Are you running over bumps? Are you in a highway? Are you in a back road? The more information you can put on here under a line, the better. So a very detailed, very descriptive way of writing it is ideal. So if you want to try to relate what you're doing in your academic classes, let's just call this one English, okay? You want to make sure that you can articulate in writing exactly what you're trying to tell the other person that's reading it. Okay, that's why English is kind of important in this particular situation. You may try to make an attempt to fix something like that and then come back later and find out, well, I fixed this, and then they come back and say you didn't fix what I brought it for. You may find yourself working for free to fix the thing they originally paid you to fix and didn't. Okay, so it's really important that you do that. The next thing you're going to put on here is the amount of labor that is required to do the job. So, for example, I had referenced the service labor time standards as far as looking up the different jobs that's in there. You're going to want to have to put on here 2.5 hours, okay? And then your shop's going to have an hourly rate. Let's just say it's $100 an hour. So for 2.5 hours, $100 an hour, your customer's going to pay you $250 worth of labor, all right? Parts, you're going to put any parts that you're going to need, you're going to write on here, and then you're going to put the price of the part, plus I would highly recommend if you're like a shop that's working for yourself, everybody does it, we get a discount on parts that normal people don't get, right? So you can actually put a little markup on your part that makes that part the same price as what they buy it for at the parts store. And you can make yourself a little bit of extra money off of it by buying parts and reselling them. So when you're reselling those parts to your customer is not really overpaying for the part, but you're making a little bit of money on the top end for buying the part and putting it on the car. Okay? So, and then to top it all off, you got your sales tax. Sales tax is paid by pretty much everybody. In Pennsylvania, it's 0.06. So there are certain people who pay taxes and certain people who don't pay taxes. One of the places that don't pay taxes is, we're standing in it, government agencies, schools, the government itself, they don't pay themselves tax on their own stuff, and the religious organizations such as your churches. Okay? But as far as like what goes on here, those are the most important things that you're going to have to do as far as like writing up a repair order. Any questions?